Hi, Internet viewers. Frank Rauscher again. Today what we're going to try to do is mount the bird. I'm going to try to show you how to set it up. We made the feet the last time. I sort of worked another video within the video to explain how I was doing the nail, where it has a hook to it and it comes to a point, and I hope that got across to you. I went a little out of camera range, but I think on the whole, it gave you the basics on how to do it. And if not, hey, come on back and ask me some questions. I definitely will try to aid you there. But I think all in all, there's enough information, but don't leave that to me. I'm going to show you how I mount things. I've done some preparation before the video, and I will talk you through what I've done, and then we'll go from there. And I'll try to show you some of the pitfalls of mounting and stuff like that. If you haven't run across it yourself, you will find out as you go. You sort of have to have a piece that's in mind, a branch or a base of some sort to set up your piece so it looks natural, and that's a big key. So I'm going to show you how to do that, and then what we'll do is we'll prep the feet, because it needs to have a sealer on it because it's metal. It's easier if we prep it and you have a sealer on it, and then when you go to paint it, it goes easier. So I'm going to try to show you that. I may have to, not with you guys, but with myself, delay in between to let it to dry, the sealer, and then come back and paint it within the body of the video, so you'll see it all. But usually what I do is you can try to accelerate it by using a hairdryer, but a lot of times it's better if you just let it dry, and it doesn't take too long, maybe a half an hour to an hour, and then you can go on from there. So it gives you a break doing something else if need be. So the other thing I want to say, like I always do, is if you like what you see and you've been following me, I would appreciate you subscribing to my channel. Try to give you all the information that I can possibly give you that I know. And, like I said, I'm not the end all of all the information on doing these birds, but what I'm doing is trying to get you a real jump start. And it's not like we're some videos from a block of wood to the finished product in a half an hour. It just doesn't happen that way, okay? Not if you're going to try to get it realistic looking. If you want to do something, so, you can do that, So I would appreciate it if you could subscribe to my channel, and if you have people that may be interested in your work or people you carve with, if you could pass my information on, I'd appreciate that too, because it helps me grow my channel more, and that helps a lot, okay? Because I'm doing this on the QT, so I don't have memberships or all the rest of it that goes along with videos. I just strictly try to give you instructional information, and like I said, I'm not the end all, so don't always, if you can learn from somebody else too, I would definitely do that. I know I've had some people subscribing to me and subscribers telling me about other people they're taking lessons with and stuff like that. That's great, because you combine what I'm teaching you to what they're teaching you, and you come up with your own style, and that's good, because you need to develop yourself, and the more you do, the better you get. So don't get so downtrodden if things aren't always falling together. Boy, the last video I put out on the competitive feat for the goldfinch, I made on my third attempt, I finally got it right, and that's sort of questionable with that, you know. So my soldering skills weren't the best, but I do have a video out there that made me look really good because everything went together like I knew what I was doing. So there are pitfalls along the way that you run across, and I'm not going to hide them from you. I'm going to try to show you that, hey, try not to do this and for this reason or that reason. And I'm going to show you today on the same thing as far as setting up goes, okay? So bear with me. And if you ever need anything, like I have all these videos out, and I have kits for those videos if you want, which has the feed the eyes, the blank, and the pattern all in one. And you can follow along with me, or as you want to go, you know, you just check the videos as you go, and I try to get you there, okay? And you can digest it as fast or as slow as you'd like, and do it that way. And I would always say, look the videos over a few times just to get the flavor of it, so that you know where you're going a little bit, you know, and seeing ahead is good sometimes too. So I'm trying to give you all the info that will help you get a better product, okay? And like I said, I do have catalogs, and if anybody needs any equipment or bits or paints or paintbrushes, I have those available. And not everything's in my catalog, but feel free to contact me. I usually give you my contact information in the catalog, and you can go from there. And I'll gladly try to help you out whenever you hit a wall. And hey, I did that over a period of time too. And I always try to listen to people that I see had done some really nice work, and try to listen and learn with their way of doing things, and you get better at this too. So at that, I will cut my talking out, and we will. I'm going to show you how I attack doing the mounting of the bird. Okay, so bear with me here. Back again. What I'm doing here is I got a base, and what I did, this is just it's a carved base that I have, and I have these available if anybody's interested in them. And what I've done is I've drilled a hole into the base, and I ended up putting a wire in there, and I have it sticking out, and it goes into this piece of wood just right locally here. And I use 5-minute epoxy, which I was showing you before. I have containers like this available if anybody needs them. They're like 2 different types, and what you do is you squirt just what you need out, and then the other one 50-50, mix it up real good. And then what I did is I applied it right down into here, and you could see that. Okay, so what I do is I give it a little more than 5 minutes. I let it sit for half an hour, better than that, and really get the glue in there. Plus, even on the if it does protrude for the bottom, to try to get that anchored in there. And I use the 5-minute epoxy. That does a real nice job on that. And I wanted to show you that I pick up a piece of wood that's interesting, that so I could set this on here, and I do that, and I'm trying to give you the views on how I go about finding some. Now this branch here, I'm sorry, I was drifting again. This branch right here was really up higher, and it didn't suit me that much. And if you go to put the bird on sometime, and if I add this to the setting here, and I don't know if you can see this well, I'm going to try to show it here. I applied it on here, and it got too close to this branch coming up. this portion right up in here. So what I did is I noticed that this had some spring to it, and I bent it down just a little bit. Now, you can't always do that with some, but what you could do is cut the wood, pin it, and then get the branch to go your way. In this case here, it was very flexible at the time. And this joint right in here, to make sure it was going to be steady and still there, I made sure I got 5-minute epoxy in there. And I also had the bird sitting on here, so I knew it was away from this interference here of the branch going up, but yet at the same time I wanted to get the right angle so the bird would be away from this base here, this portion of the setting. Okay, so I've done it that way. I've added the glue in here, and then I got a little bit of sawdust and sprinkled it on in there, and that hid anything. And this is strong enough that I could hold the whole thing off on this. You know, it's really gets solid. Now, this wasn't going in the angle I wanted. I wanted this to go away from the bird, so it went up and bent to the other way. So what I did, just to give you an idea, I came in here and I cut the wood, put that florist wire I used, it's real thin. I put a little piece in there and going down and one going up, glued it back together again. And if you grind it just right or cut it just right, you can get that just to fit, and nobody can't even tell that it was separated out. Okay, and I just found this piece to be interesting. Wasn't going in the angle I wanted. That's why this thing had to be changed. And that's another thing too. A lot of times when we set feet on the bottom of the bird, we usually have it going straight across from each other. And in most cases you can get away with that, but you got to have the right branch out for this to look like it's sitting on it and it looks natural and not button up to another piece of wood and you're sort of trying to fit it on and it just doesn't work. So I work my piece to do what I want it to do. I'll cut and put it together again to get what I need. And even with this, I drilled a hole in here to try to, on these feet, you have these points sticking out that go in, and that's how you anchor your piece onto the base. And what happened was, the first time I drilled it, I thought it was going to be where it was, and I had to change it. So that's what I've done. I've changed it, and the hole that I originally had for the 1 foot, I'm using for the other foot. So let me stick this in here and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Hopefully I should hold the camera. Now here's the setting that I'm trying to get. It's away from this piece here that's coming up, but yet it's like hanging out on the branch and it looks natural. Okay, the other problem too, that you have to do a fit up sometime, and before you get your legs attached, they're not always straight across. You can move one forward and one back and try to plan how your bird's going to sit on there. If you don't do it right, it looks like you forced the bird onto a piece of wood that just doesn't work well. Okay, I'm going to try to show you on my original piece. Let me grab that, and that's this guy here. I put this piece of wood, I thought the wood was interesting enough by itself. So what I ended up doing was gluing this down, put a rod in the bottom of it. So this is anchored, and I put 5-minute epoxy on the bottom, and we got this going on an angle, and I did it that way, and I just thought it was an interesting piece. Now, these feet here, depending on the length of what you need sometimes, you may have to foreshorten your leg a little bit. So if you're making a piece, like the competitive type, you could cheat a little bit on length on one side to make it fit properly. It looks like this bird just landed on this setting, and that's what I was trying to get. And sometimes your feet don't want to work with the setting, so you have to plan ahead, and that's some of the big bugaboos you have about mounting the bird. Okay, you got to consider that as a major way of, okay, I'm going to do my base, I'm going to get my piece of wood, and now you're trying to ramrod how you want it on there, and you can't just force it. It's going to look unnatural, okay? And so if you're doing something, I'm going to show you another piece I have here. This is a cardinal I did. Now, this is easy because it's mounted on top of something and you just plop it down, okay? So you could keep the feet straight across. There's nothing to interfere with it. And you could, if you have a base like this or a piece of wood where you're getting this all together like this, this is easy, okay? This is an easy one. You have other ones that I'll show you, and it's all to how you develop the base. Here's a kestrel that I've done, and what I used was a piece of stock that was laying around for a fence post, and I cut it off. I added some wire, rusty wire on here, as if it's part of the post, and then I mounted the bird right on top on an angle, okay? So I hope you can see that whole thing. And this is you got to consider how they're going to sit and how they look, if it looks proper and not like it's plopped on there. So that's a key thing you need to do. And when it comes to just flat faces, like I just did, excuse me, that was me with my camera. I'm trying to work an angle out for you so that you can see everything. And half the time, I'm trying to show you things with different angles, and I apologize for that. So what I want to do is, I'm going to show you one more setting, and this is easy too. It gives you ideas. Now here's a sandpiper, okay? Now what I did with this is I have a pretty good sized base, and I wanted to replicate the sand, and I left like a shell type thing here, and I wanted to put that on as something you'd find on the beach, and they go pecking around through it. So what I did is I got a real thin piece of plywood, and I mean a thin piece, not something thick, and I shaped it a little bit and then glued it down. Then I got sand, and I put Elmer's white glue on everything, even onto the base that's off of the plywood, and then sprinkle sand on there. And I've done it a couple of times to layer it, and that's how I got that effect. And so, and in this case here, the feet are straight across from each other, so you can get away with that, okay? But it's when you're trying to put it onto a branch or something like that, it really gets tricky. And that's what I'm trying to get you to think ahead before you start mounting things. So with the goldfinch here, I had to make this work. I didn't have to. I could have gotten another piece of wood, made it a lot simpler, but I want to show you that I'll cut and piece these pieces together. As long as you can hide where I cut it and you can't tell the difference, that's some of the tricks you do. Now, some people will get wire, and I have this florist wire like this. You could come in here into the base, bend this the way you want, add that ribbon epoxy that I showed you before. Let me see if I still have some around here. Of course not. I got everything all over. But anyway, the ribbon epoxy, which I had shown you before, was a 2-part epoxy. And it comes in long strips, enough to do whatever. And you need it. It's red and blue. And when you need it, it activates the putty and it turns green. And then you can fit it around the shape of your branch. And you can make your own branch, okay? The only trick on that is then you're going to have to glue your feet in, because this isn't copper. And even if you were to do it ahead of time, if you use copper wire, you'd have to solder the feet on, okay, before you even get it into the bird or anything else. You sort of have to arrange your setting so that everything's going to go together after you get the feet attached to the bird. And if you don't do that ahead of time, it's tricky. So sometimes I avoid that like the plague and don't like to go there. So just to give you an idea that sometimes mounting a bird can be really tricky, but there's a lot of ways out, okay? And with the ribbon epoxy, you can texture it. You can do things with it to shape it to look like wood, and then you let it dry, and then you paint it. And you paint it looking like wood, okay? So that's another way out. Now, here's something, after I got this all mounted and glued and everything else, what I wanted to do is mount it out here, which is what I showed you before, but I'll get that back in here again. I'm going to get this posted in here. Sure I am. There we go. There we go. So what I've done, I think my feet are getting a little weary here. Now I have not glued anything together. Everything's fancy, real loose until I have it exactly the way I want it. So I'm coming in here. I'm going to plug that into the hole. And the feet got to come around here. And I've got, what I did is I drilled a hole into the branch, and I'm going to show you that. I'm going to take the feet off here. But I got a hole in the branch, and it just so happened that when I was trying to pull this out, the bottom of my post broke off, which is unusual because usually they hang in there pretty good. But in the case of this one, it did. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue this. I'm going to show you how I glue it on to the branch. But all this has to be painted and everything else before you do any gluing. You don't want to paint when this thing is mounted on your piece. Then you got to worry about the paint getting on the piece and everything else. So I'm trying to show you some of the pitfalls. Now I'm going to take this off, and let me just straighten out some of these toes that I see are going in its own direction now. And that may be from me messing around here. I'm just going to get this out and this out. And so what I've done is I actually drilled a hole back here, which was in the wrong place. And that could happen sometime. And I'll I drilled it with a regular drill. I'll get the size of the hole I need from the casting rod, and I drill it in. And then I do another one on this side, spacing it apart. Well, it just so happened I picked the wrong spot. So I went and filled that back in, and you can do that with sawdust and 5-minute epoxy in there, and you could cover that. Nobody will be the wiser. Then this one here, I still wanted to maintain, so I plugged that one in. I don't know why it's fighting me, but it is. There we go. I got it in now. And there. So, what I'm going to do is, before I get these feet anchored down, I am going to, like I said, I have to glue this one in, and I'm going to glue the post into the wood on this one, and that should be pretty secure. So I'm going to take this off. There goes the foot for the one, flying right out, which is fine. And that just goes right back in again. That's not a big deal. There you go, like that. Now, we got to do preparation for the feet, okay? And the idea there is I'm going to have to show you how to paint and handle the feet. The base would normally have 2 holes. I have one here, and the other one is so far out, and there's very, very little. I'm just going to use 5-minute epoxy to do that. So here's what we got now. I also staggered these legs. If you look straight across on these are not straight across. They're staggered a little bit. One's forward of the other. And you can get away with that a little bit, okay? The leg could be even up another 1/4 of an inch, depending on what you need to do to shift it, to make it look balanced. So I want to let you know that, okay? So as far as mounting the birds, I think what I'm going to do is just show you. And here's what I did here. Let me take this out and this out. Remember, we had a hole in here to hold that device so that when you're painting, that would be in the right spot. Now, I decided I had a hole up here where that was. I moved it back. Then I moved this one forward a little bit. So you can jockey these. The right place to put the feet where the legs go into the body. If you hold the bird up, and from the beak to the tail, if you pick the middle, that's usually where the feet go, okay? Right in the middle between the two. And in most cases, that'll work pretty good, okay? So I want to give you that information. You could see that these are staggered. That is not the case here. And you could do that too, because birds can move their legs forward and back. So I want to let you know that. So anyway, on the castings, and I told you I was going to do with the castings, so I'm not going with the copper wire one I made. This has a certain dimension. I get my awl, which is this guy here, so the bit doesn't jump around. I push this in a little bit, just a little bit. Then I get my drill, this a little bigger than that post, and I drill it in, okay? And then I do the other one the exact same way. So that's how I prepare the bird to make sure that everything's going to fit together, okay? You have to do this ahead of time. So for the mounting of this bird, that's how we do it, okay? I think what I'm going to do on the next video, I'm going to show you how to prepare the feet, and then we'll probably get this pretty much closer together. And then maybe we'll finalize it and we'll do this. This base looks really, see, this is a recessed base here. So I could have domed this with some material and make it higher, but in the case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get what I have, and I sell this too. It's reindeer moss. I'm going to fill that in, and that's going to make it look like it's the ground. And what I did is exactly that with this. It gives you a real nice look all the way around, and I do have this available if anybody's looking for it too. It's very inexpensive, and the nice part about it is I've had this on for since I started this, and it's still as flexible as can be. The reindeer moss, I think, is live moss that had been, whatever it does, I guess it takes the moisture out of the air and stays fresh, but it hasn't set up at all yet. And if it does, no problem. It still will stay the same color and everything else. It really holds up. So that's what I'm going to show you on the final of wrapping this up. But for this video, I think we'll just talk about the mounting and how I prepare each one. And you have to make it look natural. And the feet are usually spread out. They the legs go into the body about, let me give you about 1/4 of an inch from, if you had like the middle line here, it would be 1/4 of an inch this way and 1/4 of an inch that way. I think that's it. Let me see. I threw numbers at you real quick. And let me get my ruler and give you exact numbers here. Guess what? I'm right on. It's 1/4 of an inch either way. Now, that's not saying that you can't get the leg in and where it goes in to where the leg is pivoted out. They can spread their legs out too. So, that's just a contact for the breast area. And it could go this way or that way on the breast, like I show you. And it also, when it hits something it's standing on, that could spread out too. It could go out a little further and so on. It doesn't have to be straight down and in. So I want to give you that also. And keep in mind, it's got to look natural. So if it doesn't look natural to you, don't just accept it, okay? So work with that and see how you make out. I hope you learned something from this mounting video, and we will pursue finishing this up. I hope, anyway. Not that I don't think we have that much more to do. Maybe a little touch up or two, but I think we could do that in the next video and finish up on the goldfinch. Okay. So I hope you learned something. If you did, give me a thumbs up, and if you could suggest me to any of your friends or pass the word on, I'd appreciate that too. And if you need anything, I have catalogs available with some of the products I make videos on, and even a whole slew beyond that. And my email address, if you need to get a hold of the catalogs, is Rauscher, RAUSCHER, Frank, FRANK, 7 @gmail.com. And hope to hear from you. See you now.